Thank you for joining us on At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson, and for the next half hour I have the privilege of talking to four of our state legislators about what I will call the gridlock of budget in Springfield. And to have that conversation, I am pleased to say we have four Peorians here. I didn't do that intentionally. I didn't want to, leave out Galesburg or Bloomington, but it just happened that we have a retiring representative, we have a brand new senator, and so at any rate, let me introduce to you Senator Dave Koehler is here. Senator Koehler represents the 46th district and lives in Peoria. Also with us, Jehan Gordon-Booth, who represents the 92nd district. She is a state representative. Thank you for being here. Joining us is, are you the fifth senior member of the House?
I am.
And where are you in the Republican side?
Number one Republican.
You're the senior Republican. The retiring State Representative Dave Leitch of the 73rd District. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And the newest member of the Senate, Chuck Weaver, is joining us. Senator Weaver represents the 37th District, having replaced Darren LaHood. And I suppose I could start this conversation by saying budget and let you go, but I'll be a little bit more specific than that. And I want to start with you, because you've been through 6 governors, you've been through I don't know how many budget sessions. How is this one different from the past?
Well, this has been very different from day one, actually, because we began this year with a $1.6 billion hole in the last year's budget. And it took about 3.5 months just to fix last year's budget. So then by the time we got into this year's budget, it became extremely contentious. And by that I mean typically in the last several years, we've worked very well together to set a budget number, agree on a revenue number, and then divvy up the budget, and committees would come together and adopt appropriations that would stay closely within that number. This year, for whatever reason, we couldn't even get agreement on that. Now, while the numbers were agreed to informally, essentially we were anticipating about $32.2 billion in revenue this year. Last year's budget we were spending about $36 billion. So the circumstance we're in now is on a piecemeal basis, we're spending at a $36 billion level, but we've only expect to see 32 unless there's some intervening tax increase.
Well, that's part of the change. That's why it didn't go so smooth this year, in my estimation, is that we had the temporary income tax sunset at the end of December. And so we were faced with a huge hole for looking at the FY16 budget, and that's where it started all falling apart. Because and I knew this going into it when they said, well, vote on this temporary tax increase. It was like, why is it temporary? Well, they had to get the votes on it. I said, make it permanent. If I'm going to take a tough vote, let me do it once. I'll do it. And the governor said he'd like to have it. Sunset, and then we'd talk about it. And
Governor Quinn at the time.
No, Governor Rauner. When he won the election, he said to the legislature, don't do anything because there was a fear that there was going to be something done in lame duck session, and so
understood.
It was hands off.
So, are there any possibilities of the income tax resurrecting itself as a source of income?
I think that it's clear that we're going to have some revenue to rectify the current budget situation that we're in. We talk about being in a budget impasse, but we are in a budget impasse with 90% of the money being spent on autopilot because of consent decrees, state statutes, and lawsuits. So who's left in the lurch, by and large, are institutions of higher education, human services, child care facilities. Those are the folks who are left in need. And so right now we're, I think the last report that Comptroller Munger put out was that we were on trend to be in the hole about $8 billion.
At the end of the year.
Yes. And so you don't rectify that just by cutting. There's going to have to be some revenue, and there have been many conversations in the chamber, in both chambers, as it relates to, does that revenue come through income tax? Does it come through closing of tax loopholes? One person's tax loophole is the next person's tax credit to really get the grease and the business engines really going. So all of that stuff is going to have to be debated over the next few weeks and months.
Now, you're a proponent of closing some corporate tax loopholes, depending on how you define loophole. You're also a proponent of Medicaid fraud being cleaned up, et cetera. Is that really going to, and also taxing people who make more than $1 million, is that really going to be enough to fill the hole?
No, I think I'm for putting everything on the table. So I think that when we have a situation like the one that we're in, we have to be honest with people. And so it can't all be income tax increases, because obviously folks are having a very difficult time managing their home budgets. And so I don't think that all of that should go on the backs of taxpayers. I do think that this should be a shared sacrifice by everybody. And so I think that if we're going to be honest about how we fix this, I think that everything has to be on the table, not just an income tax increase on families.
Senator Koehler, if everything's on the table, is there a chance of the income tax, which is a single source of significant dollars, is that possible?
Well, that could be part of it, but one of the things that I liked about what the governor was saying after the election was that he talked about really a need for revising the tax code, period. And he's floated some ideas out there. I agree with Jehan. Everything ought to be on the table, and we ought to look at because right now, just as an example, and I'm not advocating this, so let me explain that. But our sales tax is different than other states. We don't keep up with the growth of our economy. We tax goods. We don't tax services. We ought to talk about that. We don't tax retirement income. Above a certain threshold, maybe we ought to be talking about that. And I'm not, pushing these as my ideas or anything. I'm just saying that we ought to think about the whole tax package as one and say, let's do something that makes it fair.
Well, the fundamental, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
The fundamental problem is that's only one side of the equation. The more serious problem, and the one that I think is causing so much friction between Governor Rauner and Speaker Madigan, is we have got to turn around the state in order to grow, to get jobs. The fastest solution to so many of our problems would be if we had a thriving economy in Illinois, not the worst economy in the region, and had some jobs. I mean, I think I heard a statistic the other day that we have the same number of jobs in Illinois today that we had in 1996. And that's a consequence of having so many businesses pick up, leave the state, run away from worker comp and other liabilities in the business climate. So we have got to come together and implement some programs that will enable us and some reforms to start to grow again. We can never tax, borrow, and spend our way out of this.
We lost 6,900 jobs in this state during the month of September. And you, when you were named senator, you said jobs is the solution to this problem. But we're losing jobs. How can we turn that around? I mean, he suggested a few things. Where do you stand?
Well, I mean, you were going to ask me about taxes a moment ago, and I would want to just go back to that. First, I want to thank you for having me with these folks and just a chance to work with them, and I really appreciate that, and just great people, and I look forward to that opportunity. When I look at the people in my district, I hear two things from them. They don't want tax increases, or they say, I could support a tax increase if we have real structural reform that comes out of it. For myself, I've never supported tax increases. I'm not prepared to do that, but those are the two things I hear. And so I think Representative Leitch hit it right on the head that what we've got to do is figure out how to continue to improve our business climate. You're asking me about jobs. You've heard me talk about the Rauner turnaround agenda and my support of that. What that is about is how we grow the business climate in our state and improve the opportunity for jobs. And some of those reforms that he's talking about are designed to do that.
Let's discuss that in just one moment, Senator, and we'll get to you. But now, you also have said that while you support Rauner's positions, you don't think you should bite off all of that in one chunk, that it should be some incremental approach. True?
Yeah, and I believe he would say that you know, he has made a lot of, he's negotiated a lot in his life, and you go to the table with things that you want, and any good negotiator understands there's pieces you're going to get and pieces you're not going to get. And how do we get out of this impasse and start getting some of those things accomplished?
I'm sorry, Senator, go ahead.
Well, and I think that's the problem right there. And respectfully, I disagree with you on that. I think that it's been kind of a, you know, my way or the highway, take it all, or I'm not budging an inch. I mean, there's two issues that really, we're going to be honest, that are holding this thing up. It's collective bargaining and prevailing wage. And the governor is asking us as Democratic legislators to basically just kind of say, okay, we'll give that up, and then we can start talking about it, the other things. Well, that's our core value. And I've talked to a number of Republican business people in the construction industry. They do not want to see prevailing wage go away. The first thing they say is that, I want my jobs going to an out-of-state non-union contractor, so they take the money and they go out of state with it? You know, that's not what they want. That doesn't grow jobs in Illinois. It may grow jobs for somebody, but it's not for Illinois people. And I think that if we would just set that aside, you know, the governor is not going to get that. I mean, again, that's a core principle that I have coming into my public service, is that labor unions help build the middle class, and the middle class is what we need to protect. Now, get beyond that, and we can talk about all these things. The governor could have had compromise on a number of issues. Take whether it's workers' comp, whether it's property tax freezes, whether it's tort reform, you name it. Could have had some compromises, but it's kind of a no discussion if collective bargaining is not on the table.
I think we do have some places where if there was a true desire to really begin to negotiate, some of those olive branches have already been put out there. The House, as well as the Senate, has passed elements of a property tax freeze. That may not be what the governor would like, but I do think that it gives an opportunity for any of us that voted yes on any of those bills. It gives the opportunity to begin a negotiation to maybe go further. You know, not necessarily saying we're going to go where he wants to go, because all of our municipalities are saying, oh my God, do you know what would happen to our school districts if this property tax freeze were to move forward with the way that he's asking for. But at the end of the day, it does show a willingness to move toward the middle. I know, at least in the House, we've passed some of the first causation language that has ever existed within workers' compensation. Again, it may not be as far as the governor wants to go, but it is a starting point, so that then he could come back, you know, in a negotiation and say, well, you know what, you didn't go as far as I'd like you to go. If you are willing to add in X, Y, Z, who knows where we would go, but at least as a member of this body, we could say we've had a negotiation. I, as a member, can't say that there's truly been a negotiation thus far.
Has there been any negotiation? Is there room for compromise on some of these issues?
Well, I think that is the fundamental problem. I think that perhaps the governor, and not perhaps, I think the governor's expectations are way too high to persuade the Speaker and other Democrats to give up what David describes as their core values. They're not going to do it.
Sure.
And so I think that it's important to recognize they're not going to do it. I think they should negotiate a budget and begin to look for ways and for issues on which they can agree, and begin to move incrementally to getting our state back in a solvent position, and above all, start getting jobs for people. Mm-hmm. We cannot sustain having, especially the wealth leaving the state.
Yeah. Right.
The percentages of people who have higher incomes are leaving in droves. It's easy to switch a registration to Florida. When they move to a Florida or Arizona or some other residency, those are people who over $50,000, say, represent 75% of the income tax revenue in the state. So when these people are fleeing our state, you know, it's just a steady spiral of financial worry for the rest of us.
And I agree with that. See, that's see, we could get together.
We
on
could
this.
make a deal on it.
We could do this thing right now.
We could do it on the show.
Yes.
Right?
We
Right
could.
now on
See,
that
that's
issue.
That's what,
Yeah.
Governor, that's
do
what
it
Governor
right
Edgar
here.
has talked about. He's criticized the governor, and I think it's about time. I mean, as Democrats, we can criticize what we want, but when another former governor of a Republican Party criticizes the governor and says, you got to, understand that governing is about negotiation and compromise. And I hope he heeds those words, because I think Edgar and Thompson are well respected by both sides of the aisle.
Do you, as a newcomer, do you see any input from local legislators into the process, or is it mostly, and everyone can weigh in on this, but is it mostly just sitting back and saying, okay, well, it's Governor Rauner and it's Speaker Madigan, and we'll wait to see what comes up? Is there...
So I'm having conversations within our caucus. I'm weighing in there. But I do know that prior to me getting there, the governor, upon getting into Springfield, did sit down either in groups or with individual legislators. I have not been in that process yet, but then I've been in Springfield one day, right? So I'm waiting for that to happen.
How much input do you have?
You know what? The amount of input that a legislator has depends on how much they want to work. Now, is the governor calling the typical rank and file legislator and saying, you know, come to my office and meet, or come to my home and let's negotiate this? No, he's going to call the speaker. But if rank and file legislators, if they want to get together and they want to work on issues, they want to look at finding ways to end this impasse, they can, and we have been doing that. You know, a lot of that work has to be done behind the scenes, and it has to be quiet. And so those are not necessarily the kinds of things that you can go out and yell at the top of the mountain, because that's not the way real negotiations happen. By and large, negotiations, they don't happen in the media and they don't happen in the newspaper. They happen quietly, and if they're going to be effective, that's how they go.
See, here's the tragedy. I think the governor could be a good governor, but I think the path that he's chosen is making him ineffective. And I don't, you know, all this polarization and demonizing of whether it's Madigan or Governor Rauner, that doesn't help the process,
That's right.
believe me. Okay, The governor has done some things very well. I think he's made some appointments that I think are just wonderful. You know, Randy Blankenhorn, IDOT, Tony Smith. We just met
Excellent.
Tony Smith the other day.
Excellent.
He really speaks to educators. You know, he's good. He's on target. You know, the governor has done some good things. He wants to reform government in the way that when I had a one-on-one meeting with him, I said, I'll support you on that. You know, I believe in that. But, you know, the path that he's going, it makes it impossible for some of us to even get on board. We need to turn this, we need to get back to the budget, first of all, and then we need to take some of these issues one by one and get them resolved.
You're senior Republican.
Well, yeah, as I'm sitting here thinking, I can't tell you how many very contentious issues that I've been assigned by our caucus to negotiate, come to an agreement on a bipartisan, bicameral basis on very contentious issues. I'm thinking here, it's a shame that we're not doing this now in the budget.
I know.
Because
absolutely.
we
Yes.
understand each other, we know each other, we know how far some people can go on this issue or that
That's right.
issue. So the challenge is not to figure out where you disagree. Any idiot can figure out where you disagree. Right. The whole art of this is to identify places where people can come to agreement and move on. And
That's right.
I think many of us feel that we have done that before.
Yeah.
And some, like our friend Frank Martino, just
That's right.
Frankie and I have done dozens of negotiations before. He was until
Last week.
Tuesday. You know, he was deputy leader for Madigan, but now Auditor General. But see, when the speaker and the governor start having all their fights and contests, you know, many of us, under the surface a little bit, have no problem at all working on a bipartisan basis
Yeah.
to make something happen.
Right.
In fact, 95% of our legislation, I would say, is bipartisan. Now, and I explained to a group the other day the bill that Senator Sue Resin and I worked on. She had a bill that I was chief co-sponsor on involving the Illinois EPA. It was very contentious when she started, and I'm chairman of Environment and Conservation. I said, let's work together. I'll help you try to get that bill. It came out, and the Sierra Club supported it, and Frankie Martino helped shepherd it through the House. But that was a good piece of legislation.
Yeah.
We worked hard on that to get everybody to the table, and we worked it out. Now, did anybody in the media hear about that? No.
Not that
It was
I'm
not
aware of.
contentious. It wasn't, you know, we weren't pulling each other's hair out.
Yeah, one of my most difficult negotiations and most contentious, I don't believe ever got any news coverage because the cigarette tax was attached to the bill. Cullerton put that on, and so the whole focus of the bill was a $1 increase in the cigarette tax.
Right.
Underneath that bill, there was a major effort by the Attorney General, Governor Quinn's office, Department of Revenue, and others to try and make hospitals pay income taxes and to determine what hospitals would get credited for.
Right, I remember that.
I mean, that was a knockdown drag out. And I spent hours and hours in meetings with other colleagues, House and Senate, till we finally came to some resolution to that. But if you can imagine,
That was a nice
like,
piece of work. That
here,
was
good.
here
It was a
in
great bill.
Peoria,
Yeah.
where 90% of the docs at the med school, for
Right.
example, are all volunteers, if they were not getting credited for that,
Right.
what would that do to us? I mean, it was a bill of enormous consequence
Right.
to Peoria and to the hospital
Yes, it was.
community generally.
Yeah.
So
And
let's,
nobody even knew it
Yeah,
was
they
going
didn't.
on.
so where can, let's just assume that the four of you can sit down and have a bipartisan, bicameral discussion. Where can you give and where can you take? What are your thoughts, real briefly?
Were you talking about the budget in particular?
The budget, what would you suggest to Speaker Madigan and to Governor Rauner?
Well, see, but that's not the issue. The issue isn't the budget. And that's been part of the problem. We could have resolved this budget issue back in May. The governor's introduced budget was in deficit. We passed, in the Democratic caucuses in the House and the Senate, we passed a budget that was in deficit. We all know that there was a deficit, all right? So we need to get together and say, okay, well, how do we figure this out? The turnaround agenda came in the way and said, first of all, and I'll quote you from Governor Rauner's own lips. He said, a crisis presents opportunities. You can use it as leverage. So you create a budget crisis to use as leverage. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair to people who are dependent on daycare, for senior citizens, for kids with disabilities. That's not fair.
So where would you start? I mean, there is a budget problem. There's a hole in the budget. What are you willing to?
I would start with the budget.
Let me rephrase the question. Would you be willing to look at tax increases? And what part of Rauner's agenda would you be willing to consider? Not the entire package, but would it be tort reform, or would it be, obviously it won't be with the union prevailing wage.
Any of those things. I mean, the first step needs to be that the governor needs to call the four leaders together, and they actually need to meet. I mean, the only way you can have negotiation is to sit eyeball to eyeball and talk to one another. There's now a bill. This has gotten so silly. There's now a bill that's been filed that says we're going to pass a law that says the four leaders and the governor has to meet on a weekly basis. That's getting really silly.
As a newcomer, you've been watching from afar. Now you're in. What is your suggestion regarding budget resolution?
Yeah, well, I hear both sides talking past each other, and just as you're saying, Republicans are blaming Madigan and Democrats are blaming Rauner. And when I'm out listening to people, it's not about the agenda itself that's a problem. It's about those issues of who are blaming for the problem. And we need to get the items on the table and discuss them. Totally agree.
But that discussion comes from Speaker Madigan, Senator Cullerton, and the governor?
Certainly.
It doesn't come down to you, does it?
No, we vote on things. We vote on things when they're ready to be voted on. And there's nothing there. We go down and basically waste our time. So I think that what we can best do is within our caucuses pressure, our leaders to say, let's get something going. I mean, if the governor won't call a meeting of the four legislative leaders, then I'm going to, suggest to President Cullerton he call a meeting.
You share that?
Certainly, and many of us have done that within our caucus meetings. We've asked, we regularly ask Speaker Madigan, when was the last time that he met with the governor? As much as can be shared, what happened in those meetings? Has there been progress? And we get progress reports on what has and hasn't happened, and unfortunately, not enough has happened.
For instance, what kind of progress have you heard?
There's no progress. That's the problem. If there were some progress, we would hopefully not be in this situation. But there isn't any progress. So there's not a negotiation when at least we hear that we are in the same place that we were in March, April, and May.
We'll have to leave it at that.
I was just going to say, here's a starting point. Let's take the turnaround agenda and let's have a timetable for it. We'll deal with this issue this time frame. We'll deal with this issue in this time frame, and so on.
And with that, the lack of progress is evident, and we'll have to save solutions for another show. But I promised I promised Representative Jehan Gordon-Booth and Senator Koehler 30 seconds real quickly.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to our colleague and our friend Dave Leitch. He's retiring after this year. He has been just a pleasure to work with, and I tell you how important it is because
10 seconds and we got to go.
Yeah. Anyway, he's Jehan. He's a real statesman.
Dave started out as a colleague, and we're ending as friends, and I'm going to miss him deeply.
And with that, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And we'll say thank you to Senator Dave Koehler and to Representative Dave Leitch, and also to Representative Jehan Gordon-Booth and Senator Chuck Weaver for the conversation. And we invite you to continue the conversation at home. We'll be back next week with another edition of At Issue.